Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, an entitled Karen attacks a police officer and a veteran and demands that they must do what she says because she is a customer. She then gets exactly what she deserves. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. The title story starts like this. As a police officer, I have an unlimited amount of respect for those that serve in the line of duty. Whether you are a veteran, a firefighter, or first responder, I know that you have made sacrifices in order to protect others. I also know firsthand that there are many stereotypes and assumptions about everyone in the line of duty. Sometimes these can get in the way of us doing our job, and sometimes they can just get us down, but know that there are others out there that appreciate what you are doing. It's not all easy. Anyways, enough of my speech about serving in the line of duty. A little bit more about my background so you can understand where I'm coming from. I'm a police officer that mostly does undercover stuff. It can be pretty dangerous at times, but someone's gotta do the job, right? Anyway, most undercover cops don't actually carry guns, but you still have to have some method of protection, so I carry out a taser and pepper spray. Anyways, I was finally off work one day, or actually I guess not since duty still called, and decided to run into a local little market in town to pick up some snacks and small groceries. It was not a full-on grocery store, but just a little market most people in the town like to stop by. We were also not that far away from a military base, so we had a lot of military personnel and veterans living in the area. When I walked in the store, I noticed this elderly gentleman who was walking with a cane. He had a little handbasket and did not seem to be bothering anyone. I mean, why else would he be? I noticed that he was wearing a hat that has indicated that he was a Navy SEAL veteran. Much respect to the guy, as I said before. He was wearing black pants and a red collared shirt. The colors were the same as the store employee's uniform, so I guess it would be easy for someone to mistake him as a store employee. And that is when Karen enters the story. The guy is picking some small items off the shelf not too far from where I am. I see a lady approach him and ask him where she can find a specific item in the store. I'm guessing she saw what he was wearing and just assumed that he was a store employee. But in his defense, a quick look at his hat and you would be able to see that he was just a normal guy grocery shopping. Anyways, the elderly man apologizes and says that he doesn't work there, so he could not help her. I thought that this was a pretty polite response, and afterwards he seemed to go about his way. However, this is when chaos erupted. Karen drops her basket and starts screaming profanities at this poor man, saying how terrible of an employee he was and "What kind of joke is this? Do I look stupid to you?" And well, yes lady, you do look stupid right now. The elderly man seemed a little spooked, as I would too if someone I don't know was up and yelling in my face. I decided to intervene because it seemed that nobody else would. Don't worry, someone does come to help, you can have faith in humanity. And as I am walking towards the gentleman, the lady literally kicks his walking cane out of his hand and his basket with all of his items fell. He almost falls himself but ends up catching himself on the shelf. He caught himself in such a way that his arm scraped against the metal on the shelf and it gave him a pretty bad cut. Obviously, this guy was older and I was concerned that he might have health issues and the cut would be a problem. I immediately helped the guy stand up straight and pick all of his items off the floor. I asked him if he was alright, but he did not even need to answer because he was visibly shaken up. I felt really bad for the guy, to be honest. Anyways, Karen starts yelling at me and tells me not to get involved or else she will shoot me with her gun and maybe kill me. Yes, she actually said that. I begin to tell her something, but I don't even have time to finish because she starts charging at me. At this point, I think that she must be on drugs or something, because there was no way she was actually this angry over something so small. I see her charging at me, which I am now standing in front of, the old man trying to protect him, so I pull out my taser and aim it in her direction. She immediately falls to the ground and next thing I know, another customer is calling 911. I guess there was also an off-duty EMT grocery shopping and he helped us bandage up the guy's arm nice and tight. A medical examiner came and the guy was okay, but obviously very shook up and scared. It turns out that he walked to the store, so one of the police officers that came offered to give him a ride home. He did end up getting his groceries as well, as another customer and I helped split the bill. He was extremely thankful and seemed like a nice guy. As for Karen, it turns out she was going through withdrawals, so of course she was out of her absolute mind. She ended up getting arrested, and I guess she had previous charges, so she was gonna go back to prison. The last I heard, she ended up catching an aggravated assault charge as well as violating parole. Some people just cannot behave. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you have ever encountered any crazy Karens during your shopping excursions, then please feel free to share your own story either in the comments or on r/Ripe Stories on Reddit, where there is a good chance that I will read it in a future video. Thank you so much. The next stories, just to inform you why they will sound a little bit different, were recorded a while ago. However, they should still be fresh and new to you. These are not reposts or anything. Poisonous neighbor. Do you know that stereotype of a grumpy old man that is yelling for kids to get off his lawn? Yes, that's my neighbor, except it gets way worse than that. Here is a little backstory. I live next door to a grumpy old man named Tom. I also have 2 dogs which whom I love dearly, Cinnamon and Bailey. They are very well behaved dogs, and although they do like to roughhouse with each other in the backyard sometimes, they never cause too much noise. Well, at least I did not think so. Tom's backyard sat kitty-cornered with mine. I did not know much about the guy, only that he was older and pretty quiet. However, I figured he was a grumpy old man when he had called animal control on my dogs multiple times. The first time this happened, I had just gotten home and seen an animal control truck parked up against my driveway. At first, it did not even register with me that they could be there for my dogs. However, as soon as I got out of my car, I was approached by the animal control officer. He had stated that the neighbor diagonal from me had complained about my dog's constant and obsessive barking. I know Tom did not have much of a case, but anyone with dogs knows that they are like your children. I was afraid of something happening to my dogs or my dogs being taken away. I led the officer into my backyard where my 2 dogs were actually chasing each other and, more importantly, not barking. After his visit to my house, the animal control officer said that there was not enough evidence of the dogs barking to issue me a ticket. I was absolutely relieved. However, this happened 3 more times, and each time it was the same thing, with the officer not finding any evidence. After the 4th time, I was surprised to receive a nasty message on my voicemail from Tom. I did not even know how he got my number. In the voicemail, he had stated that he would not be tolerating my dogs barking anymore and that he would love to see me lose my dogs. I was very shocked to listen to this voicemail, and I was honestly afraid that this would turn more sinister against my dogs. They really were innocent, and I could not understand what he was so angry about. A couple days later, I was getting ready to let my dogs inside. Bailey had came running to the back door, but she refused to come inside and just looked at me while whining. Out in the yard, I could see Cinnamon laying in the grass lethargically, whimpering. I totally freaked out. My instant thought was that Tom had injured my beloved dog somehow, and yes, I was right. Next to my dog, there were a couple of pieces of lunch meat that had a strange odor. Cinnamon was whining and panting, and shortly after vomited up chewed up lunch meat. Thankfully, the dogs were okay, but I knew that Tom had to be responsible for this. I debated calling the police, but I knew that I did not have enough evidence that it was Tom and that I would not have much of a case. However, my luck changed the next morning when I was out on my back porch drinking coffee and I saw Tom throw more lunch meat over my fence and into my yard. Yes, I saw him. Of course, my dogs did not know any better though and took off to the fence trying to eat up the spoiled lunch meat. It was a good thing I was there though, as I was able to get it out of their mouths before anything happened. I immediately put both of my dogs inside and called the police officers. Upon arriving at my house, the police immediately got animal control involved because of Tom's previous history with complaining about my dogs. Well, this launched an entire investigation. However, the first couple of days of the investigation, I myself actually ended up in urgent care. Originally, I had thought that Tom was just trying to make my dog sick with expired or spoiled lunch meat. Imagine my shock when I learned that he was trying to kill my dogs with poison called ricin. The lunch meat was laced with ricin, and when I took it out of my dog's mouth, I had breathed some of it in. This led to me being in the hospital a couple of days and on a ventilator due to respiratory distress. When I got out of the hospital, thankfully my daughter had taken the dogs to her house during this time, I was even more shocked to learn that Animal Control had indeed tested and confirmed that the meat was positive for ricin. Further down the line of the investigation, the police and FBI had searched Tom's house and found a calendar with the dates marked on it when he had thrown the meat over the fence. They had also found castor beans, which is where ricin comes from, a jar of botulism, and a notepad that had said, "Throw meat over the fence." I'm no criminal, but how dumb did Tom have to be to just leave all this evidence out, especially after he had initially denied it to the police. Because of all of this, I was able to take Tom to court in a civil lawsuit. In the end, Tom had been served with 4 years of probation and was not allowed to own any pets for 5 years. This was not long enough in my opinion, because I don't think someone like this should ever be allowed to own pets. Tom also had to complete 160 hours of community service and was undergoing a mental evaluation to determine if there were any psychological issues going on that needed treatment. On top of all of this, Tom also had to complete a course in importance of being compassionate to animals. Tom is not allowed to engage with me or my dogs in any way anymore. And while I am more than happy to do so, I still cannot help but look over my shoulder when my dogs are out in my yard. And Ripe Star, since I know that many of you also have pets, I am really curious about what you would have done if a neighbor tried to poison your pets with poisonous meat. Please let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments if you wish to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance, your help is very much appreciated. The next one is titled, I Made My Boss Cry. This story takes place in Scotland, United Kingdom, and is long, so apologies in advance. I've had some dumb luck the past 5 years of my work history. I am an administrator/office type, so I applied for a job. I had been out of work for 3 years prior due to a hormone condition and depression at company A and got a job as a call handler in a telephone answering service. Over a few years I kept that same crappy job title and pay, but was actually more the office manager due to the workload and how much of a distance there was between what my daily work was compared to anyone else. So, long story short, I lost a baby. The company owner made a comment in front of me to a client. Should have kept a hand on her halfpenny. Meaning I should have kept my legs closed and not had sex/conceived. So I walked out without notice, and because I was the only one running admin in the place, it all stopped and she lost her biggest client. I landed another job at company B as an admin assistant. It should have been easy, something low-key to keep me financially stable until I could recover from losing the baby. Also at this time I had moved houses and was saving for my wedding, which was made known to the owner of the company. That is why I applied for the lower ranked and paid position. Within the year, I was running an entire central production unit for a chain of cafes and delis. Still on low pay and crappy admin assistant job title, you see a reoccurring theme here. As I was about to demand a pay rise and proper job title for the work I did, the owner puts the whole company into administration and cuts everyone's hours. I sucked it up to keep the place going. I worked hard and got the CPU into profit. Owner says everyone needs to slash their hours more because other departments are losing money. I refuse to cut mine, I'm already down to the bone financially. He agrees to have a meeting about it, but instead jets off on holiday. I hear back from company C, a role I applied for as an admin, learn that I have a new job to go to, so I walk out the very next day. The place is still in administration many years later with massive job losses, and they closed half their locations. Turns out my work was the only thing keeping the CPU open, and when I left they had to close it down because no one else knew how to run it, and they failed a hygiene inspection too. Company C takes us to the true pro revenge. At first, things are amazing. Great hours, pay, and I am treated really well. I start to put the past behind me, thinking the way things went and the last two companies must be a fluke. Company C rewards my hard work with a pay rise and better job title after 3 months. But then they start to take me for granted. After 4 months of being there, I am moved to the sister company, which is the installation branch, fitting insulation under government grants to residential homes. I am to run the installation and warehouse operations with a small admin team, and it will be temporary, with my reward being a move to office manager when the current manager Angela goes on maternity leave. On this basis I accept. The idea was when Angela comes back, she will be moved to oversee another department. So while I am running installations, I have a nervous Angela to accommodate, as she is still my manager in theory and wants me to use her crappy basic spreadsheets so she can feel like she is still in control, but I also have 3 directors/owners, swishy, stupid and sly, constantly coming in and contradicting each other over what they want and targets, etc. I juggle making everyone happy, meet the targets and get processes and procedures in place. Oh, and I am still doing tasks from my old role, as they don't have anyone else to take care of that. I have issues with the team they hired to do admin under me: lazy, slooty and shy. Lazy plays on Facebook all day, slooty flirts and chats all day, and shy is quietly handling way too much but is too afraid to speak up. So I report the team issues and they get pulled into a meeting. Remember, I'm a senior administrator, not a manager. I get brought in afterwards and Director Stupid decides that they are all perfectly fine and competent and it is my fault they are not doing their job. I suck it up, thinking he may be right, and try to work on my management style. However, nothing changes. In fact, it takes Director Sly coming in on a day when all 3 are off and I am doing all of their jobs by myself for the bosses to notice how little my team actually has to do. But again, why do anything about it when Mr. OP can take it on and cover it all as well? Nothing is done about the 3 stooges and my workload continues as is. Shortly thereafter, it is announced the new office manager will be Claire. I'm livid, but I think maybe I'm going to be made the official installations manager, as this is hinted at by other managers. I have at this point only been in the new role for 2 months. Then the stress got to me and I was off ill for a week. While I was off, everything fell apart. My admin staff stopped doing any work at all and some installs were reported as complete when they hadn't been. So Director Swishy swoops in and orders the whole place be audited. He suspends me and wants me to look for another job. He tasks the audit to Claire. Claire is 24 years old and this is her 2nd job ever. Claire looks and acts much older than she actually is, so you get fooled into thinking that she is actually better than she is. She is also the type to blame others for her mistakes or great at hiding them. She gets to the root of those installs being declared complete when they were not, as one installer pre-signing his paperwork. He would have brought that in and given it to Slooty, who would have then rebooked the job and put the paperwork back out. But of course she didn't, because she was not doing any work while I was off. Therefore, the bosses cannot pin the blame on me. Before I went off sick, I was supposed to be off for 1 day and had left a detailed list of everyone's daily job and tasks so other managers would know who does what, and then decide to pull me back into my old role and put lazy, slooty and shy into lesser admin roles. This means no promotion for me. They then hire a new admin team and make one of them the damn manager. She has no experience and sleeps with the installers. But wait, it gets even better. 2 to 3 months later, I am now working directly under Director Sly and the operations manager Lizard King. In fact, I am doing all of Lizard King's work and taking abuse and bullying from him, as no one else can stand working near him. I am doing jobs well out with my remit, like tendering for work and running the entire QMS. I am in effect the assistant ops manager. No pay rise or job title though. Now we get to the end. I effectively hold the keys to the kingdom. There is no part of the business that I don't know and haven't run or had a part in getting up and running. I am relied upon for almost everything. They call me the cornerstone of the office. At this point I've been with Company C less than 2 years. Claire is still called the office manager, but all she does is oversee a small team who submit completed installs to the funder for payment. She doesn't know anything actually office manager related. I have a run-in with Director Stupid. He allowed Lizard King to bully his assistant, so she quit. I am forced, despite protesting, to also take on her work, which is wiping his dumbass. He calls me after hours with stupid comments like, "Did you photocopy X and call Y?" After I emailed him to say I had before I left work and verbally told him that I had emailed him. I arrange a really important compliance audit to allow time to get it done right, and he calls them behind my back and rearranges, cutting the time I have to do the work in half. This compliance audit costs us thousands and is really important to get more work. It is all too much and I get sicker and sicker. Finally, I decide I will quit. I tell the office yep that I'm thinking of quitting, knowing word will spread, and it does. Director Swishy takes me aside and begs me not to leave. He gives me a paid week off and says to come in the Monday after for a talk. I think things are finally changing, so I agree. Except that I notice on the Sunday that Director Swishy posts on Facebook that he is hungover and taking Monday off. So I don't go back. I get a phone call late on Tuesday and Director Swishy is literally begging me to come in. I tell him everything and that he doesn't even pay me enough for what I do. He starts to cry. His tears are like bliss to me. Cry, man. I tell him no way, I'm done and he won't see me again. I then call up Company D, who is their biggest rival and most hated nemesis. Company D is owned by 2 former staff of Company C who were treated like crap, walked out and started up their own version of Company C. They give me a job. I then remember I never signed a non-compete, so I call up Company C's best sales staff and offer them jobs. I get their top man to come join us and he brings a handful of install leads with him, customers he was screwed out of commission on. Company C panic when they realize and try to set the lawyers on us. There is no case. They then call us and harass us, visit the office, etc. We don't back down. They actually think we have their entire lead database. We don't, and they are crapping bricks. Finally, I get a phone call from Director Swishy. Again, he is crying. "Please don't ruin us. I know you're behind this. Please just destroy the database and this will be all over." Blah blah. I let him think that I'm thinking about it. Eventually Company C is forced to buy a new database, and only then do I call him back and tell him that we only ever had 5 or 6 leads he could describe as being on his database, but those leads came to us through a third party and we had not gotten any sales, so we scrapped them. Company C have since closed the sister installations company down. Most of the staff were made redundant for unrelated reasons, not my doing, and are now a company of 3 directors, 3 managers and 1 admin from 80+ staff. Claire has been given all of my work and complains constantly, as well as a demotion. Angela got fired for being useless, Lizard King has had his hours and pay cut, and Claire is going to be forced out soon as the owners are talking about selling up. I get all the updates from the company accountant whom they bullied so bad. She lost her hair and is now working for me part-time. Revenge: making your former bosses pay thousands for something they don't need, lose another £10,000 on compliance audits they failed when you walked out, and make at least one of them cry twice. Company D so far are treating me like a queen. If anything turns sour here, it won't matter. I have the keys to the kingdom again. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.